Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Life, Liberty, and Levin. Let's start with the mail-in voting and the post office. What are the media and the Democrats saying? Of course, they're really one and the same, but check out our montage. Go.
Are you saying, say it directly, is this an attempt by the president, do you believe, to interfere in the election?
Absolutely.
That are choking the post office, slowing it down.
They will destroy the Postal Service. They'll do it because they don't want people to vote.
This is nothing but a naked power grab by this presidency to make sure that he can't be voted out of office.
Do you yet have any evidence?
What, if any, evidence have you seen?
I can tell you, based on my reporting, we only have reports so far of these machines being removed.
You want to look at where those machines were taken down. What precincts were these machines taken down?
How many mailboxes were removed? Where are the mail sorting machines? What did you replace them with? Are they being replaced?
We're on to everything he's doing.
All of this seems perfectly planned to disenfranchise people.
That's absolutely what this is.
It's incredibly widespread. It's affecting every single region of the country.
If he does not win, he's going to say that it was a fraudulent election.
It is a massive effort at voter suppression in front of our eyes.
And quite frankly, if you keep this slowdown happening, people will die.
Talking about mortality because of this postal crisis.
He is, in effect, putting his knee on the neck of American democracy.
This will be the shame of the Republican Party for generations.
This is a crisis.
It is terrifying.
It's absolutely disgusting.
It's personal. I mean, I've started writing, I was writing all these thank you notes when the show started. And I've got people now who just got them. I've been on for 4 weeks.
They say this is normal business procedure, that these machines are being removed and reallocated.
In a statement to NBC News, the Postal Service, with a straight face, has described this move as normal business adjustments.
Shocking. The lies, the spin, shocking. You can imagine people who watch CNN, MSNBC, the network news, how misinformed they are with the lies that come out of the media and the Democrat politicians. And notice you can't tell one from the other. They say exactly the same thing and they repeat it over and over again. Now some facts. And this is from the rather liberal so-called news site Politico. Edward Foley, an election law expert. First of all, let's talk about how this works. It's the states where the primary action is. The states, which the president has absolutely no control over. None. Most states, you got to get your ballot on time. If you don't get your ballot on time, you won't get your vote in on time. We saw this problem in Wisconsin in the primary just a little bit ago. Some states, they have laws, their own election laws. A ballot is eligible based on the postmark. It needs to be postmarked by Election Day. Other states, it has to arrive. It has to arrive by Election Day. What else? You have clerical errors on these ballots. Clerical errors from the state or errors that are made by the people filling them out. Names, signatures. You got to use certain types of envelopes. Some of them require tax numbers or Social Security numbers or who knows what they require. And if they're not filled out properly, they're kicked. In 2018, 8.2% of the ballots not counted due to process errors. Now think about that. Nationwide, a much lower number of mail-in ballots, 8.2% of the ballots not counted due to process errors. We have 33 million mail-in votes this last time. We could have upwards of 80 million. Now imagine an 8.2% error rate. That's a disaster. Has nothing to do in this respect with the post office. It has to do with state laws. Most election-related litigation involves these ballots. Full-blown constitutional crisis is possible here. And that's what the president keeps talking about. This could be a disaster. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi tried to slip language in the last relief bill that would compel all states to provide nationwide mail-in voting. Flood the system, overwhelm the system, and make Election Day an impossible result. And you can have a full-blown constitutional crisis, as I said, involving the United States Supreme Court, even beyond that. And I'm not going to get in the weeds on this. Ultimately, Congress, which is another mess. Can you imagine this? Casting ballots is one thing. Counting ballots is another thing. The states are not prepared for potentially 80 million mail-in ballots. Voting rolls in the states are a mess. It's one of the reasons why you have problems. Let me ask you a question. When you move from one state to another, those of you who have in the last 2 years, do you call the election office of the county that you just left and you tell them to take you off the rolls? If you're not properly maintaining the rolls, you're not registered in 2 states. So that's a problem. And the Postal Service has even warned states they cannot guarantee all ballots will arrive on time. So what do the Democrats do? They want hearings. They try to exploit this. You saw earlier, the press does the same thing. In New York City, this is recent, 20% of the ballots were declared invalid in this congressional race even before they were opened, based on mistakes with their exterior envelope. 20%. In Wisconsin, almost 6% of the mail-in ballots for primary elections were rejected. In Nevada, 250,000 ballots sent to voters were returned as undeliverable. Now, this is a problem in the states. Now, what about the post office? What about the propaganda and the lies you heard in that earlier montage? Mailboxes. Mailboxes are routinely repaired, replaced. They have a field maintenance program that's been going on really since the beginning of the post office. Between 2011 and 2016, when Biden was vice president and Obama was president, 14,000 mailboxes were removed during the Obama-Biden administration. A Washington Post article in 2009, quote, in the past 20 years, 200,000 mailboxes have vanished from city streets, rural and suburban neighborhoods. That's enormous. Mailboxes that collect less than 25 pieces of mail a day are routinely removed. This is before the President of the United States, Donald Trump, even took his oath of office. They talk about, oh, these processing machines are being removed. Processing machines are routinely updated, replaced, and then they have maintenance. There's no sabotage going on here except by the Democrats. Why? Remember Clowen and Piven? Many of you have never heard of them. They were socialist professors, and they wrote several articles, and what they talked about primarily was flood the system, overwhelm the system, create anarchy, and then seize power. The Democrats intend to flood the system, particularly in the battleground states, to raise questions about the vote if Donald Trump is ahead, to raise questions about Donald Trump if they're ahead and he wants to challenge them in court. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has hired 600 lawyers in preparation for the litigation. And that's why the President of the United States keeps saying this is a huge problem. And that's why the Democrat Party and the Democrat Party press keep blaming the President of the United States. Now, what about the Postal Service? They have been plagued with delays for half a century. In the first 6 months of 2015, during the Obama-Biden administration, 500 million, that's 500 million pieces of mail were delayed over the prior year. 500 million in 6 months delayed over the prior year. This is a disaster in the making. So I wanted to bring an expert on, Hans von Spakovsky, Heritage Foundation Senior Legal Fellow, but he's been a commissioner of the Federal Election Commission for 2 years, and for 4 years he was at the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division enforcing federal voting rights laws. Hans, where am I wrong?
No, I think you summed up the situation exactly right. And all you have to do is look at the New York primary and all the problems they had there, everything from ballots not getting delivered in the mail to voters, to the huge rejection rate, to them taking 6 weeks to count the ballots, to understand that if you multiply that to the rest of the country in the general election, we are going to have chaos, confusion, and litigation galore over the results.
I don't know why people think that overwhelming the Postal Service with defective state election laws and all kinds of errors that people have when they fill in a mail-in ballot, why they think that's going to go smoothly. What is the purpose, Hans, of in-person voting?
Well, look, the purpose of in-person voting, which is the way we have voted since the beginning of the country, is because, most importantly, You are filling out your ballot. You're doing it under the supervision of election officials and the observation of poll watchers so that you can ensure that no one is pressuring or coercing you in the polling place to vote a particular way. And then you yourself are putting the ballot in the ballot box. All of that is not happening when you vote by mail. The electioneering laws, for example, which prohibit candidates from electioneering anywhere inside or close to a polling place, don't apply to people's homes. So that means that party activists, campaign staffers, political guns for hire can show up at your home and pressure you to vote a particular way or coerce you to vote a particular way. And we see that in proven absentee ballot fraud cases. Additionally, you are putting your ballot after you've completed it into the mail, hoping that the Postal Service will deliver it in time. We know that's problematic. Every single recent primary, from Wisconsin to the District of Columbia to Maryland to New York, all of them are states where they encouraged everyone to try to vote by absentee ballot. And in every single one of the states, they had problems with absentee ballots either not getting delivered to voters or being delayed in delivery to voters to the point where it was too late to vote them.
When we come back, Hans, my question to you is this. There's been a lot of talk that the Postal Service needs another $25 billion, $3.5 billion specifically to improve mail-in voting. So when we return, my question to you is, what will $25 billion do? What would $100 billion do? Would that improve this system? We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're back with election law expert, and there's no better than Hans von Spakovsky, and he is a former commissioner of the Federal Election Commission, 4 years the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division enforcing federal voting rights laws. He's with the Heritage Foundation. So my question, Hans, is all this debate, the Democrats are setting this up. If we only had another $3.5 billion for the Postal Office, we could fix this. Or $25 billion overall, and I'm saying you give them $100 billion. That's not going to fix a damn thing. What do you think?
Well, no, you're right about that. Look, as you pointed out, the Postal Service has been losing money for years, and their biggest problem is that they're poorly managed, poorly organized, and any and all reforms that have been proposed to try to turn them into a modern, functioning organization that is efficient, the way, for example, private companies like Federal Express are, have been opposed by the, I think it's 7 unions that represent the employees of the Postal Service. You know, typical Washington speak is throw money at the problem. That is not going to solve the organizational and management problems at the Postal Service that cause these problems. And look, the mail delays in absentee ballots, the misdelivery of ballots, the failing to put postmarks on the envelopes of absentee ballots, this is a problem that's been going on for years. And suddenly throwing money at it 2 months before the election isn't going to resolve a problem that they have had for the long period that they have.
Nor is it going to fix the state election law problems. I see Pennsylvania has asked, hey, can we count our ballots 3 days after the election? You're going to have this sort of thing going on in one state court after another, in battleground state after battleground state, which is exactly why Biden has hired 600 lawyers or has 600 lawyer volunteers to litigate this. They are prepared to litigate this, which is exactly why, tell me if you agree or not, seriously, and that is why Pelosi, the Democrats, and the media are trying to position this as a Trump failure. That is, he's in charge of the post office, but he's not in charge of the states and the electoral processes. Under the Constitution, that's the states. Well, he's in charge of the post office. Well, didn't all the unions just endorse Biden for president of the United States? Well, he's in charge of the post office. You know, they're moving mailboxes and all the rest of it. So again, if the Democrats come up short on Election Day, they're going to go in court. They're going to blame Trump. They're going to blame the post office. They're never going to blame their governors. And if they think they've won, they're going to accuse Trump of refusing to leave office. Is that the game plan here?
Yeah, I think they are setting everything up to game the system. And again, you can look at the New York primary to see how they're going to do that. Because remember, they're the ones who pushed for trying to have as many ballots cast by mail as possible. They then get a high rejection rate, which is normal with absentee ballots. The rejection rate, unfortunately, with them is about twice that of votes cast in a precinct. So now they are in court. There's litigation going on in New York in which they are telling and asking judges, and in fact, they've gotten an order from a judge, ordering election officials to count the rejected ballots. So in other words, they're in court trying to convince a judge, which they've done, to count absentee ballots which were rejected, and the rejections are everything from signatures not matching, which indicates it might not have actually been submitted by that particular voter, it might be a fraudulent voter, to it not matching the requirements or meeting the requirements of state law, which means it probably actually is an ineligible voter or an ineligible ballot. And yet now they're going to count them and basically override state laws on that. I think you're going to see that kind of gamesmanship going on all over the country, and claims that, well, if you're not counting these ballots that were rejected, you're engaging in discriminatory conduct and trying to keep people from voting, even though that's obviously not the case.
This will make the litigation in Bush versus Gore look ridiculously simple, where we really had a few counties in one state.
Right.
The Democrats have decided to push this into all these states and all these counties. They'd like to do it nationwide. And then you're exactly right. If you don't go along, they say you're suppressing the vote. You don't want every vote to count. And you're right, they game the system. My concern here is this. When I went back and I looked at the Supreme Court recently on a number of these election law cases, whether it's Citizens United or whatever it is, related to election law, we have 5-4 votes going on that court. 5-4 votes. And my concern is the Chief Justice may well flip with the Democrat activists on the court. And then after that, Congress can step in. And this could be completely unprecedented, any constitutional crisis. Again, I don't want to get into the weeds with this. Maybe one day I will. But they're going to be duking it out as they meet together, counting electoral college votes. And you can only imagine what that's going to look like when you have congressmen and senators all gathered together fighting over what just took place in the states. Wouldn't this be a disastrous constitutional mess?
It would. Again, it took New York 6 weeks to count the ballot. We've only got 2.5 months to do that between the November election and Inauguration Day. We could have huge delays all over the country, particularly if there's litigation going on contesting the results. And you know, there have been, Mark, I couldn't believe it, there have been upwards of 150 lawsuits filed this year, an unprecedented number, almost all by liberals, trying to change the rules governing elections, including things, by the way, of trying to get rid of the security protocols governing absentee or mail-in ballots, saying you shouldn't have to have a witness signature on your ballot and other things like that. So if we can imagine litigation going on all over the country after November, big, long delays in counting the ballots, it's possible that for the first time in our history, we could get to January 20th and not know the outcome of the election because of the litigation going on all over the country. And I'm not sure a lot of people know this, Mark, but there's actually a federal statute that says that if the outcome of the election has not been determined by January 20th, which is the end of the president's term, the acting president will become the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we would challenge that on constitutional grounds, regardless of the statute.